Jimmy Dore has just gone off the deep end, man. For those of you who don't know who Jimmy Dore is, bless your soul, Jimmy Dore is a comedian, well, a self-professed comedian, who does stand-up, but you probably don't know him for his comedy or stand-up, if that's, you know, what he likes to, you know, throw out there the most. Most people know him for his podcast, or might remember him from his time on the Young Turks Network, where he talks about politics and he tries to infuse humor into it. Now, I have not been a big fan of Jimmy Dore, and it's mostly just been because he just has terrible commentary. He's terrible when it comes to predictions, and when somebody gets things wrong so often, eventually you have to just drop them. Because I would consider myself pretty left-wing, but then when I would see the issues that Jimmy Dore would decide to like stick his head out for and stick his neck out for, it either would be pointless or he would be wrong on everything. Whether it was him giving commentary on Syria when he obviously didn't know what he was talking about on countless occasions, too many to mention. Whether it was him claiming that it was more likely for the moon to fall into Lake Michigan than for Donald Trump to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices before Donald Trump proceeded to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices. Whether it had to do with his terrible commentary on the war in Ukraine. Whether it had to do with just his general smarminess with which he talks about these issues as if he's better than everyone else, while he attacks a class that he says thinks they're better than you. And I do mean that. He does act better, that he does act in a way that's quite smarmy, not only towards the people who disagrees with, but also often towards the people that he just has like marginal disagreements with. He can get quite nitpicky, but I don't want to get into like the ethereal critiques of Jimmy Dore, because if I get stuck in the ethereal critiques of Jimmy Dore, the Jimmy Dore fans will not appreciate it. And, you know, I live to please the Jimmy Dore fans. And so, pushing away all the critiques of Jimmy Dore, I wanted to check in briefly into his show to see what he's talking about. And one of Jimmy Dore's biggest clip chimpers, and I do say that with pride towards them, Post Left Watch, decided to take a moment from Jimmy Dore's recent show where he talks about a spiritual experience he had where he believes he met God in a dream about a Mithraic ape-man. Well, sorry, ape-man lion. It was a hybrid. Listen to this.
I've also met what they call Mithraic gods. So I had this dream where I met a this person looked like an ape, but its head was like half lion, half human. And it was a very I didn't know what the dream meant at first, but then I did some interpretation with the Jungian analyst over it. And I was reading a book, and it had a picture of what they called the Mithraic god. And I'm like, that's the image that was in my dream. That's that image. And it's in a book? Well, I never read this book before. How would I know to have that image come in my brain? Well, that's because we're all connected to a collective unconscious that stretches back to the beginning of time.
Of course. That was my first thought too.
And so that was another face of God. So I've had these transcendent experiences where I've encountered the divine, and it's been very meaningful. It's given my life instruction on really pressing issues.
I'm sorry, but I'm just imagining like he's talking to his wife, or you know, he's talking about a war, you know, either the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, or the war between Russia and Ukraine, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, or any like a pressing issue in his life, like a vasectomy or whatever it might be. And he thinks, what should I do about this issue? I need guidance. What would that monkey ape-man lion from that dream I had do? Let me go back to that monkey ape lion dream I had and consulting them about my marital issue. I mean, like, how do you even use that? How do you interpret that and use it as like a water rod? You know, those like sticks you'd use in the desert to try to find what. How do you use it as a guiding tool, as a compass for life? I don't understand that.
And problems, and as Carl Jung says, your biggest problems can't be solved. They can only be outgrown. And again, I don't know how to explain that to you until you experience it, but I've experienced that. And so, you know, I used to be an atheist. I brought up Catholic, and my atheism was a response to me rejecting religion and dogma, which I still do. But now I realize that there is way more going on than just this level of consciousness that we're aware of in our waking life. And I know that because I've experienced the divine.
Yeah, I've taken acid too, man. I've taken mushrooms too. I've opened the third eye, but that's like drugs. That's just what you just had was a dream. You know, if he said, like, I was walking down the road and out of nowhere the ape monkey god came out of the heavens and presented himself to me and said, Jimmy boy, Jimmy, please go tell Americans to abandon Ukraine right away. It's God's most pressing issue is we must immediately stop sending aid to the country we promised to help immediately. And it's like, okay, well, that'd be one thing. That'd be a hell of an experience. But if I came on stream tomorrow and I said, guys, a fire truck in a dream told me to advocate for forced birth control for all Tibetan women, or some other crazy ass story, you'd all look at me like I was deluded for good reason. Because it was a dream and it said, no, Tibetan women, why Tibetan women? You'd look at me like I was great. The dream told me to try to flap my arms until I fly. It's a dream. It's a dream. It's a dream. Has his breakdown with reality and his just ability to pick and choose what's real and what isn't real, so every single news story has to turn into a Tom Clancy novel. It can't be, oh, we're sending aid to Ukraine. It's, oh, the CIA installed government of Ukraine, which we installed anyway, which faked the Bucha massacre. It has to be like all these different levels to it to make it seem like a Rubik's cube or a puzzle that only you can put together to feel special. Why? Why does he now need to add this layer of mysticism to his work? Why is it? I mean, it's not just him. You know, Dugan does it too. There's a lot of people. I mean, I'm not gonna put Jimmy Dore and Dugan in the same area. There's a lot of people like in online politics that's taken on a mysticist look. I mean, I would point towards Russell Brand, but I can't point towards Russell Brand anymore because Russell Brand apparently is taking on a Catholic look now. Either way, okay, if somebody's telling you that a monkey ape god is giving them serious guidance on big issues in their life, you should start to question exactly what their basis for reality is, and you should also start to question whether or not they have a good sense of judgment when it comes to the pressing issues you're trusting them on, like the most basic facts about wars around the world, political corruption, or who you should put your political support behind. Because if not, then you're going to start getting more tall tales about moons falling into Lake Michigan, monkey space demons, or how, you know, your vote doesn't really matter. Vote for Cornel West this season. It'll be totally funny, haha. And if Trump wins, that'll show the lib cucks. Before then, we have Project 2025 implemented, and it's all going to suck. But ignore that. The first part's going to be really, really funny. Ko Brinko, greetings from the National Guard of Ukraine. Well, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The only person worse than Jimmy Dore are Jimmy Dore fans. Man, you know, I've met a few of them. A lot of them, if I'm being 100% with all of you, are just people who feel that the status quo is terrible. There must be something more to life. There must be more to all of this. We have to strive for more. And so they have to find some grand overarching narrative, and everything has to be a grand overarching narrative. Now, there's issues with political corruption. There's real political issues to deal with, but it can't ever just be that, hey, yes, these defense. It always has to be a Tom Clancy novel, and that's my problem with the Jimmy Dore types. It always has to be something deeper, and like the spies are involved. It has to always be something like that, to the point where he will end up aligned with the establishment of another country, like Russia's establishment, before ever considering what either the American establishment has to say, i.e. the American government, like their intelligence reports about the invasion that was upcoming, or anybody who is not completely bucking what is the quote unquote mainstream narrative at any particular point. And while I understand like either the kind of aesthetic appeal of bucking the mainstream, or the idea of the mainstream has been wrong before, so maybe the mainstream wrong again, if every single time an issue comes up and there's like a mainstream political position and you end up just taking the opposite political position every time, because you don't want to be guided like the rest of the sheeple, to me it just seems like you're a reverse sheep. Like if every time I walk forward, you walk backwards, and every time I walk backwards, you walk forwards, you might be saying I'm rejecting the Dylan Burns standard or whatever. But honestly, like I'm just directing you in I'm just controlling you in another way. I'm just pushing you in a different direction. I'm still like, my actions are still controlling your actions. Hot and take, he's been bought and paid for by Republican interests for years. I mean, I don't know if he's been bought and paid for by Republican interests. I can't tell you. I think that sometimes you'll be surprised the things people will say and do, well, completely without motive from some overarching powerful political force, or overarching powerful monetary force, either for like societal cred. I mean, think about how many like high profile rappers like get shot. Now, when these people get shot and we find out who did it, like 9 times out of 10, it isn't because this person was going to make huge bucks killing this guy. It was some type of idea of building their image, building their street cred. There's like a certain amount to it where I feel that while you could point towards money and you can point towards like grifting, I think for some people like Jackson Hinkle especially, it's huge ego. What's that thing they talk about in intelligence? Is it faith? Like it's like finance, ego. I forget the different motivators that they talk about in the intelligence community for why people like switch on their governments. Jimmy Dore was discovered and raised by wolves. That's fascinating. I never knew that. You learn something new every day.